Welcome back to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. I'm Dave Molyneux, and we're here for another collector's item special. In these episodes, we invite a guest to delve into their comic collection and share some of their favourite items. This time around, we have an artist-writer solo act who's released his own zine anthology mashup books, Active Measures, the incredible Mawrth Valliis from Image Comics, covers for Napalm, Lullaby, Hack Slash, and Penthouse Comics, and he's just wrapped up his latest Kickstarter, The Final Frontier. Joining us in the Omniverse today, it's EPHK.
Hello!
How we doing?
Great! Hello, Omniverse.
Hello, EPHK. Can I call you Nick?
Absolutely, please.
Cool. Nick.
Yes.
So what have you been up to? Well, we're talking about The Final Frontier. That seems to be your latest project.
The final frontier.
The final frontier.
It's not the final frontier. It's the final frontier. It's true.
Tell us about it.
This is the first episode. So the actual title of the episode is A Game of Death.
Oh.
Yeah. Self-published project. I like to alternate between self-published books and published books, and books that mysteriously appear in bookstores and books that I have to ship. There's just different games that I love both. I'll always alternate.
Nice.
And this next
Bit
one
of variety.
is like, yeah, and you can do more, not more, you can do very different things. There's a lot of projects that I need to self-publish because no publisher would touch that.
Why is that, do you reckon?
Different kinds of, not just for adult content reasons, but there's also a lot of weird stuff that I love doing that I think need to, like this book, like this Final Frontier.
Yeah.
Let's call it a Star Trek spoof.
Okay.
Parody, whatever. It would be, so it's everything. I'm very serious about it. I love Star Trek, especially TOS, right? The original.
Right.
I'm a big fan. Became a fan later, actually. You know, like when I was a kid, it was the Next Generation that was the thing. But as an adult, I went back to the original. But it was always missing something. So this is what I always wanted it to be.
Right.
But also under a weird lens because the entire crew of this ship are all women.
Mm-hmm.
So but it's mostly humor. But also, I don't know. It's a weird mix.
Well, because the characters first appeared in Active Measures Volume 3, right?
Well, it originally started with just an image that I saw somewhere that just gave me this idea. It's all based. The only thing I'm really taking from Star Trek is there's three colors, right?
Right.
This blue, gray, mustard, red, and that in everybody's mind just takes us back to that kind of Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the only thing I'm really stealing.
In inverted commas.
Yes.
Borrowing.
Thank you. Much wiser choice of words. So it came from an image that I saw, and it was like I can't remember what it is. I thought it was a fashion shoot or something, and there were ladies and they're presenting clothes, but they had those colors and they had the kind of theme, and it just stuck in my head and it would not get out. So I sketched in my sketchbook, but it would still, so then I made a piece and I put that up. That was a few years ago. I put it up on Kickstarter and I had my Patreon back then. And everybody was like, oh, wow, like your art, but with that Star Trek, that's such a cool mix. And then it started growing. So I did some quick comics. People loved it, but it was not over. There was still more in me.
There's
so
an
then
itch.
I made... Yeah, exactly. So then I did the ones that you've seen in Active Measures. And still it wasn't enough. And people loved it. And I wanted to do more. And I wanted to make it be everything that I wanted Star Trek to always be. It's not just the ladies. It's also the concepts, the ideas to go. Anyways, so they needed more and they deserved their own book.
Right.
So I decided to start the series, and the Kickstarter fully funded rather quickly too, which means that there will officially be another one.
Wow.
The goal was, if it works, then I'll continue. Not forever. I would hope between 3, maximum 5 stories.
Nice.
And so I wanted to basically I wanted to try to see if I could make a 48-page full comic full story where every page is the same quality as the covers that I usually do.
Oh, I see. I've got you.
So it's kind of different. You can see it's different, right? Because there's a handmade rendering, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Oh, yeah. It
But
definitely shows the change in style.
and so I've been going nuts with this,
Nice.
just
Oh,
painting away. But it takes so much more time. But I can't. 48 pages. So when that book comes out, so there'll be 48 pages main story, but also a lot of extras.
going back to, well, when? Dunno. You tell me. What got you into comics?
Well, it's hard to pinpoint because, like I told you, I was born in France,
Yeah.
and so my father is French, but my mother is Canadian. So,
Ah.
and they split up when I was pretty young. So I grew
Ah.
up in both places. I was shipped around a bit. So I had kind of a taste of both French, Europe comic culture when I was a kid, and North American comic culture. And I, I think I always liked comics, but in France it's such a normal thing. Every kid has books, and it's not a thing.
Mm.
You could, and it's a very different market, right?
Yeah.
And so you grow up with them, but they're not a thing. Everybody grows up with them. And so I think I really liked them, and they were a big part of my life, but it wasn't a choice to make. Every kid has them. You read, whatever, Asterix, Lucky Luke, everybody
Yeah.
knows. But what made me really want to take this seriously was independent American comics. The years that
Ah.
I was in Canada,
Yeah.
it was when I was 14, 15, 16, growing up and discovering stuff like Mignola or those were the late 90s, early 90s, the Vertigo years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A
That
lot
was a
of
big time for Vertigo.
I was never into mainstream.
No?
I have never. This is going to shock you. I don't want
No.
to. I don't want
Go for
to.
it.
Are you ready?
Yeah, do it.
I have never in my entire life bought a Marvel or DC book.
No?
Never. I mean,
Never
yeah, I have
appealed.
Watchmen. I have Watchmen. I have stuff like that, but I like.
It doesn't really, it's not technically, it doesn't count. It's like it doesn't count when it's Vertigo. It's DC, but it doesn't count as DC. It's Vertigo.
Okay, so then
That's
so
how
then
I
you-
always saw it.
So then, yeah, I've never ever bought or even touched the pages of any Marvel or DC.
They don't appeal? Even if a creator that you've loved has jumped on, it hasn't appealed to you to see what they're going to do.
I'll get the art book.
Ah.
If the artist is doing so, I
Yeah.
have books that have art from pages from stuff, but not just that it like totally does not appeal.
Wow.
Like I'm not against it, it just doesn't, and
That's fair enough.
I just
It's like I don't generally watch westerns. It just doesn't work for me. There've been a couple, admittedly, but not many. But I kind of figure that's probably the same thing. I mean, like if that whole, because it is essentially one big genre, isn't it? Superheroes is a thing.
it's such a genre, right?
Even though it's like a bit of a genre mashup, so you can have your crime superheroes and your space-based superheroes and all this kind of stuff. But it's still superheroes, and if that doesn't appeal to you, it doesn't appeal to you.
But I'm not saying I'm against it. I for a long
You don't
time
like
I
rail
was.
against it, really?
Well, it's not that I was against it. I was against so much energy being put into. Like it's been done. It's overdone.
Yeah, it's funny.
There's so many
isn't it?
people with ideas, with stories. Stop trying to revive this thing.
Yeah,
Let it be, and then put. There's so many great concepts being used today to try to revive that. Stop it.
yeah.
Make it. That's my opinion.
I
But
can understand.
That was well, now I just don't care. All comics is great,
Yeah.
I just love the medium. For me, it's the medium. If you like, superheroes, you like guys in tights running around catching bad guys, that's cool. That's cool. But it's weird for me because on the North American side, all my friends who like comics, of course, that is the
Yeah,
maybe even if they don't love it, or it is like part of comics. It's a huge chunk of comics.
yeah.
But when you come from the outside and you're looking in, superhero comics is super niche.
Yeah.
It's a minute percentage of comics globally.
Really, yeah.
It's almost like when you discover that there are comics in Japan, mangas that are just people walking around.
Yeah.
You know, those books. There's a whole category of books where it's just a guy with his dog walking around. It's like a 500-page book. They see a bird. The bird flies away.
That sounds great.
Nothing is being said. The dog
Sounds really
runs.
relaxing to
They're
read.
super relaxing. There's a name for it too. I can't. Anyways, but it's like when you find out like what a niche thing, or these business guy mangas.
Yeah.
Where you're just following the life of this guy who's nothing. He's doing nothing crazy. He's just climbing up the corporate ladder slowly, year after year, and it's just a comic about that. And it's a whole scene. It's a whole scene. So not to minimize it, I know that, but to me, it's not the same, but it's kind of the same kind of niche. This superhero thing, right?
Yeah.
You have to be raised with it.
Yes.
I understand. I have friends who like, oh, me, it's like Spider-Man forever, anything, like all the other ones could all disappear. You know what I mean? It's because it means something
it's
to
just
you.
Ingrained in you to a degree.
There's a point in your life where this thing landed on your lap and it just blew you away, and forever, it's like.
Well, I'm fascinated to see what creative people read. So we're going to take a look at 5 topics. And the first of those topics is a current read, because now I really want to know what your current read is if you're not reading superhero books.
Yeah, they're all going to be weird books, huh?
I love weird books.
None of them are mainstream.
This is
also,
great.
I told you I'm living in France now for 3 years, so I have access to very different books.
Uh-huh.
But I've made sure that everything is linked to something that can be found in English.
Okay.
So current read. Surviving on Mars by Brandon Graham, published by Living the Line. I just cracked it open yesterday. I love Brandon's work. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I've read King City, but I haven't managed to get more stuff, but I do want to.
And so this is more of an auto-bio comic. It's I don't know if I can show. It's beautiful stuff in there. Beautiful. It's these comics that he does about, auto-bio stuff, I guess, but with color.
Oh, is that translated into French, or is that in English?
This is in English. This is the original copy. It's published in English.
Who's that published by?
Living the Line.
Oh, that's Living the Line.
Which are my new best friends. I'm not doing this for that.
No, honest.
This is a book. No. This is a book that I tracked down. It took me a while to get it.
Right.
I'm friends with Brandon, but it took me a while to get it because I'm in France and I have to order.
I did think you were. I did think you were friends with Brandon because I think I've seen you sharing each other's stuff and everything as well.
Well, we regularly share stuff. So, but I need. It took forever for me to get this. So I'm very happy. But I got it about 2 weeks ago. And so I cracked it open. So that is officially what I've been reading, my current read. But this is all about, I haven't read it yet. I just started. But it's
I can't delve into too many questions, obviously. I don't want you to ruin it for yourself. But it looks really nice. And I love his art style. But I also picked up Rain Like Hammers, but I haven't read that yet. Have you read? I
loved it.
Yeah?
I have Rain Like Hammers. I have King City is great. And then there was this Russian Multiple Warheads.
Oh, Multiple Warheads.
That's great. That's a beautiful book too.
I need to get that. That's been on my list for so long.
Moonray? Have you seen Moonray?
Oh no, I don't know Moonray.
It's the second. He's done a lot of books.
Would you say you generally will try and get hold of his books every time he releases something?
I think I have them all.
You do?
I think I have them all. I think I have them all somewhere.
Huh.
I have. You can't see this now because of the way the screen is, but there are books everywhere. I am running out of room. I'm moving soon. There's books everywhere. I'm almost putting them in the fridge. There's just no more room.
I feel your pain. Believe me. You should take a shot of your books and we can share it on screen.
Okay, I'll do that.
Do it. There's nothing quite like I love it when someone comes in and they go, whoa. And you go, yeah.
Yeah, but also, right? Yeah. It's not just, it's also,
But when they run, it's the wrong person. But, it's just that people are fascinated.
I mean,
if you don't do comics, it's a whole alien world in itself, you know.
you asked me what got me into comics. There's a million things, but one thing I have to say is that being younger, discovering comic book shops in the U.S., which are very different from the ones in France,
Yeah.
and so you have all the floppies are facing you, right? So you can see all these images and stuff, but
Yeah.
you go to the back, or usually that was the the comic book shops that I saw. You had all the trade paperbacks all lined up. All you see is spines.
Oh yeah.
But you have this giant, this usually big rooms. You have this big room filled with shelves, filled with tiny little spines, and each of these spines is an entire universe.
Yeah.
And the world of possibilities. What could be in this room? Everything.
Well.
So that is one thing that made me fall in love with comics.
That is the thing. That's a really, really nice way of putting it, actually. But like your book, am I pronouncing it right as Mawrth Valliis? That's how I've always pronounced it.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah. Is Valliis a reference to Philip K. Dick?
No. So I double I the actual. It's a real thing, but it's only one I. I misspelled it on purpose.
Right.
But Mawrth Valliis is an area on Mars.
Oh, it is.
Vallis is valley in Latin, and Mawrth is Welsh for Mars. It's Mars Valley.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And
Oh,
if you
that's
Google
cool.
Mawrth Valliis with one eye,
Yeah.
it's all NASA showing you pictures of Mars and
Oh my god. There we go.
so this is where it's happening, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah. Yeah. But like you say as well, I mean, you've created in such a tiny package, because it's quite a small book, but there's so much in there, and obviously there's well, I say obviously, there's no English dialogue technically. It's very much of its own. Is Martian officially, or not Welsh.
No.
But this is a beautiful book, and the way that you've told the story in this as well, it's like there's clearly some underlying elements that you've got in your head that you're not sharing, and it feels like there could well be more to tell someday. So fingers crossed.
Oh, the second. I think you're going to love the second book.
Is it going to have an extra eye?
So I'm skipping most probably keeping Mawrth for Mars, and then moving to keeping the theme, not an official real place on Mars, but Flumen, as in river in Latin. So instead of valley, river.
Oh.
And the whole point of the book is going to be us going upstream. There's a thing with the water. There's a thing with and we're going to switch sides.
Oh, really?
So the story in 2 starts where this one ends, exactly. But we're going to follow one of those eggs, and we're going to switch sides. We're going to go on the other side. The ladies dressed in dark purple, black.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to follow one of them. Yeah.
That's really cool. When are we expecting to see that?
I'm starting this year. I'd like to have at least a good amount of page done, more than I need to pitch it before the end of the year.
I tell you what, if we move on to your next one, this might tie in quite nicely, because obviously you like stuff that's a little bit different. So could you share with us a gamble that paid off?
Yes, actually, that's the most American
thing
that I have in my... It's not mainstream, it's an image book. But so I was in Paris not so long ago, and I'm in a small town in France, so forget it. Original American comics, very hard. But I was in Paris, and so I make it a point to go to the bookshops that do carry American books.
Yeah.
And I found Bloodrick. I don't know if you've seen this before. It's an image book. I had no idea what it was, who this was from, and I just picked it up. It's a gamble, right?
Yeah.
And I try to do this as much as I can, pick up something weird.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't always pay off, but when it does, it's great. And this was amazing. This was so much fun.
Is it a one-off?
It's a one-off. It's a few stories with the same character. I don't want to say his name wrong. Andrew Kranka? So so much fun. This was a great book. It's just, so for me, comics is 3 things, right?
Yeah.
It's a story, the art, and then as a different thing, visual storytelling, right? Because an illustrator can make nice art, but a lot of great illustrators fail at doing comics. Or a great writer can write amazing stories, but they don't all succeed when it comes to comics. It's
True.
a different medium. And I think the glue between nice drawings and the story is visual storytelling. And this is an example of a successful super comic. Really fun to read, great storytelling. And I'm just overwhelmingly happy because when you do that, when you try completely blindly take something off a rack and take it home and read it, it's usually, oh. But this was, oh, I couldn't stop it. I ate it up in one go.
What's it about?
It's kind of like I don't want to coin it as something else. It's like it's very metal.
Yeah.
It's like a Conan-y, headloper Conan-y kind of warrior guy. But there's not so many. It's more about this big guy who wants to eat, and he's hunting, and shit happens to him, and it's a great time. It's fun. It's great storytelling. There's a bit of everything. It's beautiful art, but it's beautiful storytelling. I was very happy to see this. This is a name that I now follow on Instagram and on everywhere, and I'm waiting for the next books because the simple, I don't know, you have a few panels, silent panels, you see a little thing happen, and then you see the reaction, and you're there. You know what's happening. That's brilliant storytelling for me, you know?
That makes
and
a lot of sense.
There is a story, and it's hard to explain. You got to go get it. Go buy it. It's worth it. Did you not know about this?
No.
You personally?
No, missed it completely.
I highly recommend it. Yeah.
So it's Blood, R-I-K, one word.
Yeah, Bloodrick.
Yeah, Bloodrick.
That's this guy's name.
Right.
Kind of like a Conan-y.
It looks a bit kind of Conan-y, but I think sometimes, because I love Headlopper, and it's obviously got a kind of a Conan influence, but it's also got a massive Zelda influence, and you know, it's a real mix of genre.
But it's that world, it's right?
Funny. It's that world, but it's also got a sense of humor to it.
Oh yes, definitely. Oh, this also.
That does. Also. Dude, I'm gonna have to pick this book up.
It's. I highly recommend it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, that makes me even more intrigued to see what we're going to get in the last three topics. Shall we jump onto a good-looking book?
Absolutely, good-looking book. Okay, this is a French book. It's a French edition. I was shocked by how beautiful this thing is. I'm talking about the artwork. It's a great story. It's a great comic. It's French pacing, so much slower, but it's mostly for the artist, the illustrator, who, okay, so I'm going to show this book. So the name of the book, how can I, so it's in French, so how can I translate it as The Last Day of Howard Philip Lovecraft. So it's H.P. Lovecraft's last day. And he's in his hospital, and he's going nuts, and he's having all these weird visions and stuff, and it all connects to his world and to other writers, and it's very interesting. But there's no real action, but the artwork is absolutely nuts. It's a mix of hand painted and digital, but mostly hand painted and overlapped. I mean, every panel is different. So many. It's an absolutely gorgeous book. So French edition. I do not think there's an English edition of this, but this guy who did this, who I'm showing off today, where's his name? Rebelka. Polish guy, Polish comic artist. He's done a bunch of books. This is the first one I've spotted of him in France. There's a few other books that I found from him, but he is currently working and has been working with Boom in the US.
Oh.
So this is my link to, so I couldn't find this in English language. But his work, everywhere I've found it, is as beautiful. So this book is what made me fall in love with his work, and this is my answer to a beautiful book.
Because that is a beautiful book.
It's absolutely stunning. The design is great. Everything is great. It's published by 404 Graphic here in France. They've done a few books with him. So, but recently, knowing now his name, I heard it elsewhere, and he is working on a comic right now with Boom. This dark detective with weird... Yeah, he's into weird dark stuff.
Oh, I can tell with the Lovecraft connection, he must be.
Yeah, it's all kind of that kind of... He did a thing for Cyberpunk. I think Dark Horse did it. One of those books is by him.
Oh.
And when I say by him, I mean this cover is the quality of every single page inside.
That's nuts.
and everything. So this cyberpunk book is a lot brighter and weirder, but it's all hand painted. Everything in every page he's ever done is all hand painted stuff. It's absolutely stunning. And there's a book that is about to come out that Boom has been starting to talk about a lot with them. That is all painted by him, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Right, and that's the thing as well. Like, sometimes when someone's work picks up across, into English market, sometimes they start looking at their back catalogue as well. So it could well be that while it isn't in English yet, it may still be coming.
I think it has to. But just the techniques on how he paints, and then beautiful. And that was just like, what's this? It looks good. And then open it, and it's every page is just as good as the cover. Okay, I'm buying this.
Do you feel shafted when you pick up a book and the cover is this incredible thing by an artist who has nothing to do with the interiors?
That's hard for someone who grew up with French comics to understand, because it's so mainstream in English Anglo-Saxon comics to have a great painter do your cover, and then a different artist doing the interiors, right?
Yeah.
It's part of but it's very different. You can't, it's very rare that happens in France.
Yeah.
All the painted covers are painted by the artist so they might be different styles, Rod, because you'll paint, you'll make a painting for your cover, or you'll try to flashy, whatever. But, but the same artist, you'll never ask a different artist to do your cover.
It does seem
weird in French comics.
Yeah.
But if you're in France and you're making a comic, you're making your cover. No one else is. But in the US, you even have most comics, the commercial comics, the Marvel, DC, the big two, these comics are made by a few people. The pages, you'll have a penciler and an inker and
true.
So it's for economic reasons, right?
Yeah.
Like everything it's a different business.
I suppose, like you say as well, even with stuff like Hellboy, sometimes Mignola does the covers for a certain spin-off series, but it's not necessarily being drawn inside by.
True. I used to be disappointed by that, but he writes the stories, and he handpicks other artists.
He does pick good artists.
He does usually pick great artists to make his comics, right? Because I guess he can't draw them all, and it must be nice to take a back seat and have some other guy with a different idea, different vision. But I remember when I first found these books, I was disappointed because the art wanted to look like Mignola. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was like,
there are some people that follow a similar style, but it's not
very influenced.
It's like the school of Mignola.
Exactly.
More than,
And to me, that was not a mistake, but that was something that should have not been. Like, I'd much rather see Mignola stories with completely different artists.
Yeah.
That aren't trying to look like Mignola, right? That would feel less like
it's like
an issue, I think.
The cheap version of the knockoff.
Right?
Yeah.
And it sucks for that artist too, because I'm sure in another context, his stuff would be great on itself. But behind a Mignola cover, what a shadow to...
No.
So might as well go. And a lot of franchises, especially here in France, are being relaunched. Old that are being redone with different artists. And some either take the route of trying to find someone who looks like the original artist.
Right.
Always a fail.
Why would they just do something different? That's weird.
Or they go nuts and they're like, no, we have this thing. Let's see how someone who draws completely differently will see it. And those are all good books.
Really?
Even if you don't like the story, it's just so interesting to see this.
Just a fresh take.
Weird artist do a Lucky Luke, right? They're relaunching a bunch of different things, and it's fun.
Huh.
But when they try to find someone who, I don't know, would be a seamless transition, it's never seamless. It's always a fail.
I don't see the point of recreating something when you've got the original anyway. Just
it existed. It's over.
Yeah.
You know,
have that, the essence, and then have the new thing.
And that world, keep it if you want to keep going with it. But I would love to see, I'd love to see, I don't know, like Snoopy, but by, I don't know, I can't connect the dots, but you know what I mean.
I thought you were gonna go Snoopy, but by Jose Ladron,
exactly,
sci-fi epic.
Things are down. I would love to see that. I definitely want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, that would be quite cool, actually.
Didn't they do that with Archie? Didn't they go crazy
They
with
did,
Archie?
yeah. They've done all sorts of different things, like with horror stuff. They've done Archie versus Predator. They've got what was the thing I picked one up. I've never picked up an Archie book before, and it was Betty and Veronica, but they're like bikers, and it's really short, but like it just looked like so much fun. And I know nothing about Archie, so I still haven't even read it, but I got it because it just looked really cool.
But it's such a smart thing to do. I mean, they've probably done every possible version of official Archie that
surely
that can
they
be
can't
done,
be far off now at this point.
Okay, what else can you write about this?
That is Archie in space. It's got to be next if they haven't done it already.
And let's get some crazy artists out there.
Yeah.
Let's get some. I'd love to do an Archie. You know, like.
I was going to ask you actually, because there are a couple of pages in one of your books where there's a Battle of the Planets reference and a Red Sonja reference. Is there a character that you'd really, really like to get hold of?
I've always preferred doing my own stuff.
Yeah.
I'm kind of against copies and continuing, and I will always prefer doing original stuff that I create, that I make. So there's nothing real. I mean, there's a lot of things, of course, you'd have a lot of fun with, right?
Yeah.
But I think I don't see it happening. But
it might.
What I like to, the only reason I'm doing comics is because I have stories to tell. I want to tell my stories. So I don't really see myself as an illustrator for hire, right? So like other people with other scripts, I need to be involved with creating the story at the very least.
Although you've got variants, right? So potentially, even if you did a variant cover of something that you were a big fan of.
Oh, you mean just illustrating what I would like to paint?
I'd
love to paint a lot of stuff for sure. But I was thinking like actually writing a story for something.
Not keen on that idea.
I mean, I don't think it's not possible. Like I would, you know, if someone gave me a Batman run, they would not let me do what I want with it.
No.
And it wouldn't be to be an asshole. It would be because I want to make this version of Batman. It'll be the best Batman ever, at least in my head, right? But they won't, you know. So for me, it's not even an option. I'd love to have any of these, just the idea, you know. But when it comes down to reality, which is, it took me 2 years to make a 300-page comic. That's one of my stories. I have about 15 stories to go.
Oof.
I'm 46. It doesn't add up, right?
Yeah.
So the only reason I'm doing comics is to do my own stories, to write my own. I have stories to tell. So I can't spend years of my life on someone else's story.
That makes a lot of sense.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because there was a point in time, and I think I've probably said this a number of times on various episodes, but there was a point in time where I'd see an indie creator and go, God, I'd love to have them do a Spidey book or a Hulk book, or you know what I mean? But nowadays I'm seeing these creators and I'm going, God, I'd love to see what they do when they cut loose on their own. Part of my brain has just completely flipped it. And now I'm literally just looking for that stuff where people can just do that thing that they want to do. And when they've got that story in them that they need to get out, I think that's when you get people's best work.
And thanks to things like Kickstarter, they are doing it.
Uh-huh.
More and more. It seems like it's really hard. Like if you're stuck in that corporate comics thing, it's really hard to branch out. But some are, and what they're coming out with is so much more interesting than what DC or Marvel can do.
Probably more and more so now.
Because I hear this a lot about American comics. Oh, they're dying. It's not doing well. It's not true. Comics has never done better. There's never been more comics, and comics is nuts, and it's a medium. And whether it's in France, in Italy, and in Japan, in the US, and the UK, there's more and more stuff, and a lot of it is coming through stuff like Kickstarter or self-published stuff, and a lot of them, the quality of the work is sometimes much better than the corporate books. Like the actual artists are actually better artists than the corporate stuff that comes out, you know?
Right.
Like, I don't know what runs are happening right now with Marvel or DC, but the latest random book, you know, whatever superhero floppy run is going on right now, I'm sure that there's some artists and creators and writers that are doing much better work on Kickstarter.
Probably. Although the interesting thing is a lot of the time when people ask, because where I do reading orders for a lot of stuff, the things people ask for the most is the old school stuff. They're not looking at the new stuff anymore.
I feel a lot of real American comic book fans are constantly disappointed.
Yeah.
It's like this weird, it's like heroin. They keep buying them. They will buy all the issues, but at the same time, they are constantly complaining about it. And I
Yeah.
understand the complaining. I agree with it. That's why I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the same level. That's why, but they still buy it. There's something in them that is.
I was guilty. I was guilty of the same. But as soon as I broke away and I started looking at other stuff, I was happier. And then it's the thrill of the hunt of finding that thing that no one else is talking about. And almost, not in an egotistical way, but being able to go, this thing no one's talking about. You need to get hold of it. It's amazing. It's brilliant. And then the next thing you know, it is everywhere. And it's not so you can go, I told everyone to get. It's just so that, it's to get this stuff in people's hands and have other people feel that same excitement.
That joy of taking a chance on something and having it pay off is amazing. Those are books that stick with you. And
exactly. Well, speaking of favorite things that you've picked up, let's have a look at your favorite purchase.
Okay, so this was another kind of chance that I took. So again, with the French American comic thing. So I don't, like I told you, it's hard for me to get the American books. I can, but I need to know what I want. I need to order it, and I need to wait for many months to get it. If I want it through my bookstores, through my local bookstore. So, but once in a while, but a lot of books are translated. But often I'd rather have the original, especially when there's any form of humor or anything.
Right. Yeah.
A good example, if I can bracket.
Yeah, go for it.
Is I'm a huge Kevin O'Neill fan. Which we lost last year.
Yeah,
the year before,
I think the last couple of years.
And huge martial law fan.
Right.
And martial law in English was published by 3 or 4 or 5 different publishers. There's no one has the rights to put them all together. I think DC had a book.
They did, yeah.
Which was a lot, but not everything.
Oh, was it not everything?
Some people don't want to sell the rights. I don't know the details in it, but they made a French edition, which had 100% everything martial law in one book, which is impossible to do in English. They just bought the rights from everybody and then made a book. And the book is beautiful, hardcover and beautiful book and everything. Except the problem is martial law has a lot of writing in the art, right? O'Neill would write things
I was going to ask
everywhere, in the back, and it would his
all over
handwriting.
People's clothes and stuff as well.
And a lot of them are puns or wordplay, right?
Yeah.
So you can't translate that, and visually, and some they didn't, and some they did, but with type font, I could not, I can't. This object exists and it has so much potential, but I cannot have it in my house. Do you know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah, I do in a weird way.
You have martial law standing on a pile of dead superheroes, and in the back in the city, there's signs that say things, but those signs are actually, if you look at them just for half a second, they're actually, it's not hand drawn, it's typed, and it's a translation, and the pun doesn't work anymore. And it's that all over the book because they tried to translate, and so also when he speaks, there's a lot of wordplay.
Yeah,
and so none of it hits anymore. So it was so hard, but so there exists a book which has all the martial law, but it's been dubbed. And it's a horrible, so it's a weird thing. But so I think I need to continue the hunt for the originals in separate.
So your favorite generally is martial law as a series, as a character.
No, I wasn't. Sorry, I was making a bracket. I'm not answering your question. That was just to say that some books, some editions, as an object, there are these things. Like, for example, with this martial law book, it exists in this little bubble, but it's weird, and it's, So I try to avoid French translated comics of American comics. I try to get the original if I like. Yeah. In this case, however, and what. This is one thing that French comics usually do a lot when there's bigger books in the US, when they translate them. They'll have the original book, but bigger size, which as an artist, I hate it when we do that. When we stretch, it's supposed to shrink. But to match the French format, so a hardcover, beautiful edition.
Oh, yeah, they are generally bigger, right?
and yeah, they're like A4, right? So they blow them up.
Yeah.
And they will do that with certain titles. They'll have the way it came out, but like bigger, whatever, in color, and then they'll have a black and white edition.
Oh.
Same book, just no color, black and white, but not like a special artist, like not as just a rough scans for just the same book, but in black and white. But then this came out, Do a Power Bomb by,
No.
do you know this?
Yes. There's a bit
Daniel
of an
Warren
ongoing
Johnson.
joke on the show because we did a Hidden Gems episode and my co-host Eric chose Do a Powerbomb as a hidden gem when it was like one of the biggest books of the year. But I still haven't read it. It's not really that well hidden. But I still haven't read it. And I'm desperate for them to collect it in a nice format because I figure it's coming.
Well, this is the French edition, but not the normal edition, the special only ink edition. And it's rare that I will go that route, but in that particular case, so this is the French edition, but for Daniel Warren Johnson's pages, as an artist myself, to be able to see his inking, this book is an absolute masterclass, and it's big format too. Masterclass in inking, beautiful pages, and you see every line, every stroke. That's, I think, for anybody who enjoys drawing.
Yeah.
There's a few pages with tone, but most of it is just his inking.
Wow.
And I don't know if you've ever seen him on his channel or him inking, but he's very brushes.
Really?
Let's do it, and he makes it look easy, but you can see he works on it. But just the inking, the dynamic, his action scenes are absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So I like this story. I like this book, but I picked this up because it's, I don't know, it feels like 300, 250, 300 pages of
because what was it, like an 8-issue series or a 6-issue series? So that's a lot of pages for that. Do you get extra stuff, or is it is the paper thicker as well?
I think the paper is much thicker, yeah, definitely, at least 150 grams. Yeah, there's no extras. It's the book starts, and then at the end, And
wow.
So in France, we like to make these books fancier.
They aren't. That is nice, though.
It takes more space, though. Remember we were saying with the space?
Yeah. But it draws more attention to it, and you love it. So.
Definitely. And the color version is great. The original version in color is a great book, and it's a great story. I like the story. It's fun. It's a fun read, and it's very well told. He's done a few comics. He knows how to make comics. But specifically to answer your question about, the favorite purchase thing, it's just this for the pure inking porn that it is. To see all these, it's beautiful.
Okay, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to jump to your last choice, and I thought we'd finish on something you highly recommend.
I moved to France 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've been re-submerging myself with French comics, rediscovering, and I missed 30 years. So there's a lot of stuff that, that came out. And one of the things that I discovered maybe 2 years ago, which was my best comic of that year, and ended up staying the best comic the next year. It's my favorite thing. So it's not the best thing that ever was made. It's not. But for me, it is absolutely wonderful. So I got them. There's 4 episodes. I got them one by one. This is a French comic. There is a collected edition. I just don't have it. So you, I'm showing you 4 books.
Ooh.
So it's called Lupus by Frederick Petters. Swiss guy. And so like I said, I chose these books because there is a link and there is an English edition of this.
Right. Excellent.
I think it's top shelf.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Has a collected edition of this Lupus, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is my favorite comic of the last few years.
What's it about?
It's kind of it's my perfect idea of a mix of a story. It's real human stories but also with a sci-fi twist. He's an absolute master craftsman, but it's very simple, black and white. A beautifully told story, brilliant ideas. It's just so much fun. It's such a pleasure to read. I would pay a fortune from him to continue to make more, but that's it. There's only these 4.
So it wraps up at 4.
Oh, yeah. This was done years ago. Yeah, it's pretty old. I discovered it a few years ago, but it's pretty old.
Right.
I love him as an artist. I think he's a great artist. He's a great storyteller. He's one of the very few comic artists whose whose narrative work I prefer when he writes his own stories.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually, a lot of creators will the writer holds up that part of the deal, right? And when creators who've always worked with someone decide to do their own thing, you could see it might be great. It's just not the same level of storytelling. And he's the opposite. He's done books with others, which are great.
Yeah.
I don't love them all. But he's a great storyteller, so that's taken care of. Beautiful images, that's taken care of. But when he writes his own stuff, and he does regularly, he has a few books that he wrote. They are great.
Huh.
And this is I honestly, I'll tell you, it's in my top 10 all time. Like, this is next to, like, it's very different artistically or anything, but just the simple pleasure you get from reading this, I highly recommend to anybody who loves comics as a medium. This is right next to Akira or Mobius for me.
Huh. Is it quite big in France?
Well known, everybody knows who this guy is. He's
Right.
been doing it for a while. Well known, it's still not mainstream. I mean, I
Hasn't
think
hit
anybody
that
who
kind of
really
Akira
likes
level.
No, not internationally. Definitely, I speak to American friends, or I've never heard of him. And his book is Lupus is one of his biggest books, I think, because it's the only one translated in English.
Oh.
And he has. I don't want to lie on his behalf, but I think there's at least 12 books that I have.
Yeah.
From him that he's made.
All good. Like his solo projects, is that?
His solo projects are great.
Yeah.
His works with others are beautifully illustrated, beautifully told. They're not, in my opinion, as great books.
Do you gravitate towards creators who are? Because I mean, I know the generally recognised term is cartoonist, which I personally don't like as a phrase, because I don't know, because cartoons often is used as a bit of a throwaway phrase, I think, especially maybe more of an English thing, I don't know. I think I've heard people be very dismissive of going, why are you into cartoons? It's like, it's not.
It feels like it's less serious. I call it cartooning when in my pages there's some more lighthearted stuff.
Yeah.
Or comic shorthand, like when somebody laughs so hard that they fall.
Yeah.
And you only see the feet, right? For me, that's cartooning. It's a language of cartoons. So I'll put that in a serious book that I'm making, but that'll be more cartoony or cartooning. So a cartoonist for me would be someone who does only that, right? Little, jokes and strips in the newspaper with a bad joke that never lands. That's, for me, that's more. But there's a lot of great things to take from that. So I think cartooning is a tool in comics, but I don't know. I guess comic artists. I call people.
Oh, that's just it. I mean, you're technically then a cartoonist by the reasoning that most people give for that, because you're writing and drawing your own stuff.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do both. But there are a lot of cartoonists, comic artists who, it's not the same thing as an illustrator. Even if you only do work for hire, even if you only make comics for other people to write, it's still not the same as illustration. Illustrators, and there's a lot of great ones, whatever, but storytelling with images is not at all the same thing as making a beautiful image.
No. And this is true.
There are a lot of great, fantastic illustrators, things that I have on my walls that I've seen them do comics, and it's a fail. Well, I mean, if beautiful work is not just that beautiful, if you open a book at a comic book shop and all the art is great, you want to buy that book because it looks good.
Yeah.
But comics is more than that. Comics is about the story. Sadly, I mean, a book where the art is beautiful but the story sucks is not a good comic.
No, it's not.
But the opposite is a book where the art sucks but the story is great. Is a good comic.
It can actually win out, can't it? It's funny because I was talking to people I know who don't read them, and they've said they say the thing that you'd expect, which is, isn't it all about the art? I'm like, well, no, it can be good, but I don't generally keep a book if the art's good but the story isn't. But I'll keep a book if it's the other way around.
Because the medium is the storytelling, I think, right?
Yeah.
So what's the story? That's what sticks with you, which transcends the page, right? But to be able to ingest it, you need to have good storytelling. And the art, we're all trying to do our best.
Yeah.
So it's not that no one is being like, oh no, today I'm going to draw like shit because it doesn't matter. We're all trying to do our best.
Yeah.
So, and we're all progressing.
Yes.
So those books are going to keep getting better, and the artwork's going to get better. But ultimately, that's almost for us or for you if you appreciate that specific style. But the visual storytelling is the only thing that really matters. If you can convey that good story into good images for someone to read it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to name drop anything, but there's a lot of great illustrators who do comics, and it's not a good book. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, but you're right. It's a different thing. I mean, one of the things, just to plug you. One of the things, like with Active Measures, I think just reading them, you have a mix of both. I'm being slightly careful, but like, you
some
have
of these pages can.
I don't want to get banned. You have a really nice mix of both, and I think it really shows that you, like when I'm reading it, as much I love your art style, but you can tell the story as well.
I try,
and it flows. It doesn't feel like you're an artist who's trying to write. It feels like you are both.
Thank you. Best compliment ever.
Oh, cool.
I mean, with every page you learn, and it's a constant, and it's fun to learn too. But there are pages I'd done a few years ago. I'm like, today I would do it differently. So it's
I think that's a natural thing, though, isn't it? You're bound to pick apart your old work. I mean, I pick apart everything I do the minute I've done it.
Right,
but I don't think that's an unhealthy. Well, it can be an unhealthy thing, but it's how you grow as a
balancing it can be healthy.
Yeah.
I'm
really looking forward to what you got coming up. Just anything you have coming up.
So this fall, it's going to be a good year because the Final Frontier, this not Star Trek book is coming out in maximum. I'm expecting it to come out in fall, September. I've promised everybody would have that in their hands in October.
Are there going to be copies available if anyone missed the Kickstarter?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
The Kickstarter kind of helps me print 1,000 books. I don't want to print more. I don't have the space for it.
Yeah, that's the point. But no pun.
And the Kickstarter, I sold 250. So I have 750 books left. So there will be. Usually it lasts me a few years. The Active Measure Volume X, though, I sold more than 2,000 of those in a few years.
Ooh.
Those were really popular. The adult stuff. Yeah.
I need to go with it.
So September, Final Frontier.
Yeah.
And then before that should be in August. We don't have an exact date yet, but Harpy, my big book.
Who's that through?
Living the Line.
Right.
Living the
Who
Line
we
is
mentioned
publishing
earlier.
that. Yes, exactly. My new best friend. That's a 300-page book. It's the best thing I've ever done in a way because it took me 2 years, but 2 years, 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. No breaks. I would take a break to work more, to make more money, to continue making that, So I'm very, I don't want to sound like I think it's great or anything, but I am so fucking proud of that.
Good.
2 years of drawing every day, inking pages every day.
It's going to be amazing to have that in your hands.
Oh, yeah, especially that I'm not printing that one. That one's going to appear in a box one day.
Yeah. Wow. Well, definitely some stuff to look forward to, and no doubt more in the future as well.
Working on 4 books this year, so it's happening. Yeah,
it's good news for me. Well, EPHK, Nick, thank you so much for coming into the Omniverse and sharing some of your favorite comics and giving us something to look forward to with these upcoming projects. Where could we find you?
I try to run away, but I always end up coming back. I'm on Instagram mostly. Every time there's a new app, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. And I'm happy because I get my name in that, no one's going to steal my spot. I got EPHK on the next app. But then eventually I slowly come back to, and nobody's left. Everybody's back.
Everyone stays. They mean to leave, but they never do.
I don't want to encourage them, but Yeah, it seems to be the best place for images. But everybody who wants to try to make a new one, please do it. Eventually, one will stick. I mean, if I could do the same thing and not give a single penny to Zuckerberg, I'd be totally happy.
Win. If people want to buy your books, where's the best place to go?
Everything is connected now, right? So I have this link tree that has all my links that's accessible with so it's all connected. But I have my online store, which is mostly an online bookstore, and that is store.clandestinerepublic.com.
EPHK, thank you so much for coming into the Omniverse, and we will see you soon. At ease, soldier.